Okay, so altogether too often, you know, we rail against the mouthpieces and things like that, but we don't look at the institutions. And if we accurately understand the disease, if we can correctly diagnose the disease, then perhaps we could proceed to curing the disease, and all the symptoms and the victims would just fall out of memory. Right? One of these great super-social diseases that has so very much beset not only the United States, all the several states, and our protectorates, but also the world, is this trust idea. And the idea of these incorporations. Incorporation in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. A trust in and of itself is not necessarily such a bad thing. Hell, a heart framing hammer is in itself not such a bad thing. But if you go around beating people on the head with your heart framing hammer, it becomes a weapon of mass destruction in a rapid hurry. Imagine the destruction you could do on a packed train car with a ball-peen hammer. Wow. What a mess that would be. Furthermore, the enhanced prestige and increased financial power of this kind of a combination made it, not only in the oil industry but elsewhere, a far more formidable factor in the disposing of threatening or actual interlopers than the loosely organized secret pool. And the secret pool is just another form of trust. All right? But what are they trying to do? Get rid of these interlopers. These pesky little Lilliputians that think that they can give Gulliver a bad day, right? Closing down all of the opportunities. Remember, my friends, in these articles, you know, the news articles, the journalists, they're always talking about, oh, the middle class, oh, the middle class workers. Fools. Karl Mordecai Marx was sitting down to pen his Communist Manifesto in the payroll of the English positivists with Engels. The middle class was understood at that time, as it had been for a long time, as not the workers, but the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs are really frightening to the uber-rich. They themselves were entrepreneurs once, and they know that once they climb up the ladder and get their hand on that brass ring of power, lest they kick that ladder away, some other enterprising Gould or Fisk will come up there and upseat them. The war has always been against the entrepreneur. That's the middle class. You have the elite ruling class. You have the black nobility of Europe. And immediately below them you have these artisans and these thinkers, these stinking free thinkers who think they can. Who think they can, you know, it's like, who? Who am I? Who am I to think? Who am I to think that I can? Who am I to think that I can change? Who am I to think that I can change the world? Who am I? I am middle class. I am entrepreneur. I am thinker outside the box. And I am the mortal enemy of the capitalist pig at the top of the pile. Why? Because through my own ingenuity and invention, I can surpass even their achievements, and they are petrified. In the electronic age, like John McCain and William Roberts, we have to depend on our wives and dogs to run the computers for us. Thank goodness Doug Owen is patient with me. I'm not computer lit, I'm just challenged. Challenged, all right? Anyway. I'm special. Back to the discussion. I'm going to say it again, though. It is therefore not surprising that the trust pattern was copied within a few years in numerous industries, including, among others, distilling, white lead manufacture, that's a story in itself, and sugar refining. The middle class is not the wage slave. If you denominate your produce at the end of the year by dollars per hour, if you're collectively bargaining for more dollars per hour and more benefits, you are not in the middle class. You are a wage slave. A slave on the plantation, niggling and higgling with your overseers who are in bed and sleeping with the corporations that you're trying to get somewhere again. They take care of you pesky little union people. They just offshore it and outsource it. All right? You're done. That giant sucking sound was the end of the union. Public agitation over the monopolistic tendencies exhibited by these new giants in the industrial world led to a testing of the legality of the trust form of organization. We hear about this fellow coming in to Kansas, Dorothy, from New York City, bringing along with him all of his new forms of reorganization of state government. In a series of cases in the state courts, it was held illegal, mainly on the grounds, first, that entrance into such an association by corporations, even though carried out by private stock transactions, was a corporate act ultra vires, justifying forfeiture of charter, and secondly, that the action of any enterprise joining with others to form a monopolistic combination was contrary to public policy and void at common law, and so they had to kill the common law. And the rise of statism, the state has arrogated unto itself all of the natural law, returned as codified, statutory, regulated privileges, taxable, licensable, and revocable. By 1891, the trust agreement had virtually been outlawed as an agency of industrial concentration. Meanwhile, on Planet X, legislative attention was being given to a more effective program for the prevention and suppression of monopolies. Popular agitation against big businesses had originally centered, particularly in agricultural communities, on the railways and collateral enterprises such as grain warehouses. And then the Grange organizations came up. All the populists came out of the woodworks, and then the collectivists came out of the woodworks too. Various states passed Granger laws during the 1870s fixing maximum rates, prohibiting discrimination in rates, and attempting to prevent pooling operations. The Federal Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, remember we've studied that. We're still studying legal positivism, really. This is just a sidebar, even if it is multi-parts. We talked all about the Commerce Clause in the Interstate Commerce Act of 1887, insofar as it was concerned with rate discrimination, was in effect a bulwark raised against the growth of industrial monopoly. We saw quickly that was neutralized. Why? Again, the Hegelian dialectic does not begin with thesis. The Hegelian dialectic begins, as do all dialectics, with synthesis. This is dialogue into consensus for the attainment of a predetermined outcome. Outcome-based education, that's a dialectic in process. You know the synthesis, you know where you want to go. So you create a thesis. And then you create the antithesis, and all the school teachers come out railing against oh God, Walker's taken away collective bargaining. And we're moving rapidly towards a synthesis. The John Q. Average man has not been availed to because he doesn't follow the sort of broadcast that we do here. All right? Anyway. So insofar as it was concerned with rate discrimination, it was in effect a bulwark raised against the growth of industrial monopolies. Various states in the late 1880s passed anti-combination laws of varying degrees of severity. It was shortly after this that the American Bankers Association, same time period, contemporary, that the American Bankers Association was formed. Immediately thereafter, they created the American Bar Association. Almost immediately thereafter, for the Standard Oil people, of course, they created the American Medical Association. And then they created the Uniform Commission of Laws, the Uniform Law Commission, as I like to say it. And from then on, baby, it was an all-out war on the Constitution. It was an all-out war on the common law. It was an all-out war on Leviticus. For all the Christians out there, read it. Find out more about that at George Gordon's Law School. It's on the web. I'm enjoying his broadcasts lately. But let's continue. In spite of some expert economic opinion that monopolistic tendencies were inherent in modern industrialism, amazing, and ought to be controlled, not prohibited, popular opposition to the tendencies emerged in the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890. Sections 1 and 2 of this act, which to the present day, again this is the 1920s, define the basic policy of the United States towards monopolistic combinations, stating that, quote, every contract, combination, or conspiracy in restraint of trade or commerce among the several states is illegal, and that every person who shall monopolize or attempt to monopolize or combine or conspire It just gets worse than that. Is guilty of a misdemeanor. Well, a misdemeanor. Slap my hands, baby. We're out of time.
Taking
Back
it back.